Yeah, so if we start looking at the deck lists, we are going to be looking at Tog versus Qzmik today. I think that's how you pronounce his name. We're looking at Kai'Sa versus Sett. So as you can see here, for the rune split for the Kai'Sa, we got 7 Fury runes and 5 Mind, with Sett going for 4 Order and 8 Body, with the battlefields you can see listed here. But if we move on to the deck list, I'll hand over to Casanova, who will be able to break these down for us.
Yeah, so right away we're going to get the Kai'Sa, which is looking relatively standard here from what Kuvi kind of brought to the table. In fact, this is almost looking card for card, the Kuvi list that was able to win a meta Runeterra weekly, or not Runeterra, meta Riftbound weekly a couple weeks ago. And this is kind of what you're expecting, except for a new addition of this Sun Disk to add even more potential accelerate or readiness for these units to try and get those caps early on. Draven also being added for a bit more of the top end. So just a few small changes to that list that has seen so much success, and we'll see if that additional way to grant kind of this haste to your units is enough to kind of help get those last few points.
Yeah, and then we move on to the deck list for Tog, which is going to be Sett.
All right, and Tog kind of been known for this Sett list for a little while now. Is playing a lot more low to the ground than a lot of other sets. We even see him continuing to put the Cithria of Cloudfield in, but we are seeing, you know, multiple early drops. We got 9, actually 12 2-drops, and then still having even more in that 3-drop section. So just trying to get on board early and often. I really like this addition of Leona and Wallop into the sideboard. I believe this version of Sett struggles a lot into Master Yi, and both of those stun additions post sideboard will be able to help that matchup significantly.
Yeah, it's interesting to see so many early drops and seeing if he's actually going to be able to make it through the early game with that low to the ground push, and just seeing if he can hold the battlefields. Since quite a lot of these units don't have a lot of might, can he just swarm the battlefields? We're going to see his full gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, Tog so far in the course of Riftbound so far has become a little bit known for this Sett list. He was able to also win, I believe, a meta Riftbound weekly, and also he's just kind of been very active in the community Discord talking about Sett. He's been playing Sett for a while. I've known Tog for a bit. He's runs the We Make Best YouTube channel, doing a lot of Flesh and Blood content, now coming over to do some Riftbound. He's already been trying to pick up as much content as he can around this set, and of course every single game that he plays in this tournament could just add to the content machine. He's certainly wanting this first game on stream to be a big boon for him, and I think Kai'Sa is a matchup he feels well prepared for. I think that is the advantage of the early Swarm set. Even though your stuff can get removed relatively easily, you have the Sett activation to kind of bring it back, and you're able to get on both battlefields very quickly.
Yep, so if we then now toss it to the games, we can see how game number 1 is going to go for Tog and Qzmik.
Jumping right on in, Tog versus Qzmik. We are going to have these battlefields straight away. It is going to be that windswept hillock, and then I believe that is Monastery of Hirana on the top side there.
Yep, so Monastery of Hirana, we'll just break down the battlefield a bit. So for the Hirana, you're going to be, when you conquer, you may spend a buff to draw 1. So very powerful with that set start. And with the Cithria of Cloudfield coming down for Tog. Got that early game start. Ooh. We're seeing the Orb of Regret and the Ravenbloom student for Qzmik.
Yeah, so immediately Ravenbloom start, the Orb, getting that down. This is probably one of the best turn 2s that Kai'Sa can actually have for the setup, right? You've got your gear online, which is going to make all your spells essentially just 1 more powerful when you cast them on your own turn. And then also just being able to help with your unit combat by improving that. It does just reduce the might of a unit by 1. Really powerful. On the other side, we've got the Cithria as the start for Tog, and we're gonna see if he's able to get a lot of aggression going right out the gates. We see him just gonna go ahead and send her in, and then ready her to bring her back. I really like this. Actually, not even back. It's Hillock, so there is ganking. This is a double cap on a tapped out Kai'Sa. Really nice to pick up those early points.
Yep, going for that double push, getting those points early, knowing that the Kaiser cannot respond, using the battlefield, so he's conquered, he's using the buff to draw one. He did a really good turn 2 play there, managing to push the pressure onto the Kaiser. Now they're going to have to start pushing hard to make sure they're not going to get any more points and take the game quickly.
I think this is actually just kind of a perfect example of why Cytherea of Cloudfield is in this deck for Tog. Because he's playing the Monastery, because he has this, really nice turn 2 setup, Cytherea is not supposed to stick around. She's just supposed to try and come on board early, have that buff synergy in a pinch, have flexibility with it, or just be able to draw the card off the Monastery because you're just trying to get as many of these low drops as possible. And you are going to fall behind in cards against Kaisa because so many of her cards will cantrip, right? We see this Lecturing Yordle. That's going to come down. That's a 3-for-2 with tank, and it just draws a card. And there's a lot of cards in this Kaisa deck that are just doing that same effect. They're just going to draw cards. They're going to replace themselves. And because of that, she just tends to gain a massive amount of card advantage over any other deck.
Yep, and we see the Lecturing Yordle come down for the Kaiser, gives them a body, gives them some draw, looking for those removal spells without emptying out the hand too much. Ooh, and we're seeing a Sabotage from the side of Sett. So we can see them...
No spells.
Wow.
So this is just one energy, recycle one, find out your opponent's hand. However, no spells does mean there's a bit of a green light for Tog to potentially just go and take out this Ravenbloom student, knowing that there is not going to be any follow-up immediately. Gears are not at reaction speed or action speed even. They're just kind of cast at that very slow speed on your own turn. So this Ravenbloom is just a sitting duck when we look at this hand.
And because we have seen the hand from Qzmik, let's use this new feature of it showing the hand for both players. We can see what Sett is also running for his hand. So we can see here he's got the Showstopper to help him push onto the battlefield, and as well as the Snapvine to clear off the battlefield if he's struggling to push it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and having the Showstopper with the Call to Glory and the Pit Rookie, or the Pit Pookie as we like to call her, is really, really powerful because of the fact that we're just going to be able to see that call for free at some point. You can do it on demand with the Showstopper, send in, and then go from there. But for now, you are just able to play out this Pit Rookie, be able to put the +1 might on to the first mate, and from there, you're able to have the Call to Glory active to make this a 6, or you can just set to bring it back to base if it does go down.
Yeah, with the Call to Glory as well, we know he's got it. But if Tug just decides to tap out, Qzmik might just think, okay, he's out. He might not play around with the Call to Glory. So we will see how this goes. So we're seeing the Orb of Regret being used on the first mate. So it is 1 might down. And the acceleration coming from the Kaiser, pushing onto the battlefield with the Lecturing Yordle. 6 might to currently 3 because of the Orb of Regret. So we're probably, Lecturing Yordle's going to get traded off here, with the first mate seemingly being pushed back, and with the Sett Legend ability going to be used to keep it alive.
Yeah, interestingly, that did cover for Call to Glory to protect the Kaisa. You have to sacrifice the Yordle, which is a little bit unfortunate for the side of Qzmik, but you are guaranteeing that you won't get blown out by a Call to Glory in that spot because of the fact that it would remove the buff, reducing the first mate down to 2, and then give the +3 up to 5. And because of Lecturing Yordle having tank, 2 of that damage has to go there first, and you would not have enough to actually take down the Kaisa. So really, really heads up in the ability to just deny the blowout of that Call to Glory, taking down the Kaisa and not letting her get the conquer.
So we are seeing the Ravenbloom student come here. Tog knows from reading the hand that there isn't any spells for Kaisa. He might have top decked one if he's reading the hand correctly, but Tog will probably be able to push this 4 might here, 5 might like a Poro and the first mate to claim the battlefield. But we are seeing Sett come down for 4 and a recycle, and then recycling an extra 1, using Showstopper, sending Sett straight to the battlefield. So Sett has the 5 might plus the buff and then his text. So it ends with 7 might against 4 for Kai'Sa. So the trade, very favored for Sett.
Yeah, and I mean, Qzmik being tapped out, and we know Qzmik's hand is entirely flooded by units. It's very possible that it's just one spell off that top deck, so it wouldn't matter much anyway. But I think because of that, and, you know, Tog just having all these extra units on board ready to go, been able to get the aggression very quickly. He's on a two-turn clock from being able to actually win the game at 5 now. You know, can only really score 2 per turn unless you're able to score on your opponent's turn with a move in. But since he has battlefield control, it's just going to be 2 per turn. So next turn going up to 7, and then from there going to have to find that winning point. And I think considering it's just a bunch of units right now, and a cleave being the pickup, that's not the best spell overall. It will be able to clean up this first mate, no problem, but not able to find an answer to the Sett. And I think that is going to be the real issue over here for Qzmik.
Yep, so with the cleave, it activates the Ravenbloom student's text. So pushing up with 6 might easily takes over the 3. But yeah, Kai'Sa is struggling. If we look at the hands again, let's see what Kai'Sa's rocking. We can see a Shakedown, we can see a Sprite Mother, but nothing really that is going to stop this Sett from just holding there. We see the Draven come down.
Ends up playing the Draven onto the Hillock, so going to attempt to hold the Hillock and then be able to use that ganking to potentially attack the Monastery. This is just a Draven for 6. I mean, 5 for 6, it's slightly above rate. It's not that incredible. Shakedown being the only spell means realistically you can only get up to 9 here with the Ravenbloom student, and you're not going to actually get removal because Tog can just say draw 2. So this is a spot where the Shakedown is looking a lot worse because there's no other spells to back it up. And 6 is really important number here because we saw that Snapvine in hand. That will be able to contest directly with the Draven if Tog wants. He does have to be a little bit afraid of these 2 open resources being a potential smokescreen, however.
Yeah, we know that they've got the Snapvine. It seems just that Sett is too big to deal with, even with the Draven that can get to those astronomical high might values for the cheap price. It is quite unfortunate for Qzmik. Bit of a rough start, no spells in hand. Doesn't seem like he's going to be able to deal with this Sett easily. He still has the Orb of Regret, so Sett is at 6, if we think of it that way. So we could trade, in quotation marks, with the Sett, but we both know that Sett's just going to go back to base.
Yeah, I'm curious if Tog will just rip the Snapvine, because if he does send that down into the Draven, 6 into 6, the 2 floating right here is going to be able to basically say that, like, this can be smokescreen and your Snapvine will only fire for 2. If that is the case, Draven goes down to 4 life because it'll have 2 damage counters on it. Ravenbloom would be a 3, which is 7 might, and Tog actually can't really beat that with just effectively 5 might on the bench here, having the Poro with Assault going up to 3, and then the Pit Rookie. And so from there, you're basically tapping yourself out, not able to really follow up because you've used the Snapvine. What I will say is you can use the Call to Glory and take the might or the buff away from Sett and give it to these other 2 in the case of that blowout, and you'll still beat the might. You'll be 8-7 at that point. You will kind of have to trade away everything to remove the board, and you're just left with Sett. Decides to just go for it. The response is the Shakedown. Tog, I think, obviously will just say draw 2 and take the trade with the Draven.
Yep, it's the correct play to do here, I'd say. There's Shakedown is a very interesting card. You can either deal 6 to your opponent's unit, or they can just decide to draw 2. For you to draw 2, sorry. But I don't think Sett really cares if they have more cards. They have the battlefield advantage. They know. Yep, we see the draw 2. So the Draven and the Snapvine trade. 3 for 3. They both trade. And Pookie pushes up. Potentially looking for that 7th point.
Okay. Potentially just moving the Sett back. I still think you're going to... Actually, you don't have to go for the 7th point. I think this is reasonable from Tog. Because of the fact that you are at 6, now you just have to score both battlefields. And the way his deck is constructed, you generally have to score both battlefields anyway. It's not really constructed to be a hold deck. I think that the outlier is actually this yellow Sett. This big Sett here is the Kingpin is able to hold, but the deck is not built for holds. It's built to double conquer. So just being at 6 is essentially the same as being at 7 because you are going to have to score both battlefields anyway. So I think this is good from Tog. Have 2 units, back them up. If they cannot be stopped from getting onto battlefield on this next turn by Kaisa, that will just be game. And we know there were not any spells, but let's see what the draws were off of this shakedown. It is going to be a Falling Star and a Hextech Ray. The Hextech Ray is going to be able to potentially deny a lot of the captures from the smaller units that Tog has, or the conquers from the smaller units, but also Smokescreen in conjunction with that Hextech Ray can take down the larger units.
So we are seeing the Lecturing Yordle come down for a draw 1. Hoping for a card to potentially pull him out of a tricky situation.
Falling Star.
Taking out the Pit Pookie so that Tog currently will not have a way to get both points during the start of this next turn.
Oh,
he's looking for an acceleration unit to potentially push up, or that first mate, if he has it in hand, he can push to the hillock.
So
ready to open, send it over to the
I just want to point out here, Qzmik did Falling Star onto the Pit Rookie and onto the Sett, and I think what I thought was going to happen was then the Smokescreen follow-up on Sett, because there were 3 damage counters already, it would have removed the Sett. Now, of course, you can always set ability there and then just and recall the Sett and still keep it alive without the buff. But instead, just going to kind of let that 3 damage go into the void to hold up additional resources for this turn. Looks like the Sabotage will take one of the smoke screens.
So recognizing that is a threat against his large might Sett. He's seen the hand. He knows what to play around. As long as he plays it slow, he'll be able to predict what his opponent's going to do and play around that. So we are seeing the push up to the hillock for the 7th point. And for his play, I'm trying to remember if he had a first mate in hand, because that would just win him the game.
Well, not 100%, because there is still the ability to remove the Sett in hand from Qzmik, because there's another smokescreen and the Ray, and that does get to 7, which would be able to take out this Sett.
So just the Pookie coming down, can't target the Sett because he already has a buff, so the effect of the Pit Pookie not doing anything, but he's got the unit. Sett is holding the battlefield. If it goes back over to Tog's turn, he will win game number 1. We're just waiting to see how Kaisa... Let's have a look at Kaisa's hand. What did they draw? They drew another Void. Well, they drew a Void Seeker, which is removal plus draw. With Call to Glory.
I think there's already some immediate answers here with the smoke screen available for Sett. I think the annoying thing for Qzmik is that Sett ability going to be able to bring this back afterwards. So immediately we're just going to see the Void Seeker sent in, get the draw, see more options, 4 damage counters onto the Sett. Gonna reduce it by 1 and then just try and trade the Yordle in.
So Sett is at 6. That is 6 for 6. He can gain 1 from using the Call to Glory, but decides to save it.
Sett activation makes sense. Now it's back at base as a 5. There's no way to remove that. However, and now it's just a development turn from Kaisa. Does get the Sprite Mother, so this will be able to try and defend one side with that Sprite. Putting 3 might on a battlefield for Tog to have to overcome.
They still have the Hextech Ray for this Pit Pookie. We see the Kinku Student, I believe it's called. Kinku Monk.
Yeah, Kinku Monk.
Kinku Monk. Coming down, buffing both Sett and the Pit Pookie. So currently 3 mites on the Pookie, not 4.
Yeah, should be 3, not 4. They also, it's still called to glory as the other card in hand. These 2 buffs are going to allow that to kind of sneak out, but I think Qzmik probably has a read that that may be the card left in hand at this point. There hasn't been a good time for it to happen, and it was played around by Qzmik earlier. So I think just having the read that, hey, I'm going to play around this call to glory. And when we look at the runes available for Qzmik, it is basically Smokescreen and Ray as the only ways to answer on this turn. And that is enough to deny the cap, but the problem is Sett ability is still going to be available.
Yep, so we're pushing up to the hillock with 7 points. So can't win the game from that. So Togby is looking for that draw. And draws 1.
Looks like maybe his opponent said wait because he put the card back. So maybe there is going to be something out of the Kaisa. Looks like nope. There's the draw.
Seems to take the draw. So Tog could potentially put this. Ooh.
Okay.
The Hidden Blade. So Qzmik has to draw 2. And he's pushing up with the Pit Pookie. Trying to get that last point. But as we know, the Hestet Cray comes in to kill it. However, we know the card in hand.
Yeah,
Call to Glory.
There, but we do know this is a Smokescreen, so that's still going to get stuffed. However, the buff was still there, so you are able to bring this Pit Rookie back if you want to from Sett ability, and Tog will do that. Doesn't really need runes anymore, just needs to have units available to get these caps. And Kaisa treading water, but Tog has given 4 draws, once with the Shakedown and then the second with the Call of the Week. And because of that, like, now Kaisa may actually have the answers. She has so many runes available, but this hand is a little tough. Kaisa, Sun Disc, I mean, you can just try and get a Kaisa on board and draw another card, but you are definitely missing out on spells.
Yep. The one thing with Kaisa is you're playing for your spells. So with a hand with no spells, you're not going to be having a fun time. You've got the Kaisa, you have the draw cards there to help you find those spells, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So Sett goes down to 4. We see a Ravenbloom Student being accelerated because of the Sun Disc.
Yeah, I like this a lot. Tog is tapped out. No buffs, no Sett ability. This is time to take out the Sett. You have card draw available because of the Kaisas in your hand. So now is the time to try and remove as much of Tog's stuff. And this might be Qzmik turning the corner. All these extra cards.
Throws the Kaisa down with the acceleration. With the extra cost. Goes to 6 points. Now it's on Tog. With his 2-card hand. We know it was a Kiana, so we know that wasn't going to help. Let's see what he drew. See if it's going to help him. It's a Glory Seeker. He's going to be struggling here.
And what a draw for Qzmik. The Falling Star. Obviously, this turn tapped out, but because he's not losing on board to the Sett player, and we know that there is not a draw here from Tog that is going to make this a win, that falling star is going to be able to clear up a lot of whatever Tog wants to play.
We see the draw from Tog. It was the Hidden Blade. There was no response from Qzmik, and Tog
that does get there.
He gets the point. Tog wins game number 1.
The top deck off of the off of the Conquer. This is the only out, I believe, in the deck that he has, because I don't think Showstopper gets there. I don't think Yeah, no, he doesn't have enough runes for Showstopper to get there. It's only the Hidden Blade that actually can get the win, and Tog finds it off the top to get game 1. And we'll see. Now we have the sideboarded games going in game 2 and 3. And I'm curious who that is advantage towards, because we saw Tog sideboard and it looked like it was very tech for Master Yi. I've forgotten if Qzmik has anything that would specifically help him with the Sett matchup.
Yeah, we'd have to ask for production to pull up, if possible, the Kai'Sa deck list again. If it's to hand, oh, there it is. Production's got it. Yep. So we see some recalls, some singularity to help with the bigger units. We do even see 2 copies of Acathian Rain, which potentially could be very strong here.
Yeah, I actually like the Rains versus Tog's build. I do think there will be certain points in the game, especially when we look at towards that last turn. If it had been Rain instead of all those extra units, Rain would have cleaned up the entire board for Tog, and that would have been curtains. There would have been nothing left for him to do. I think because he's playing this more swarm-heavy version of Sett, as a lot of these low drops, if you can get to a Rain later in the game, you can reset the board and find a lot of opportunity. I would not be surprised for Rain to be included. If I remember correctly, Tog did not have copies of... Geez, we're going to get these card names eventually, but I believe it's like Unyielding or something like that, Marshall. It's the one that completely stops any spell damage, and yes, it is not here. It's not present in the sideboard or the main board for this list.
It's quite surprising, knowing how prevalent Kai'Sa has been. It's a card that I definitely would have had in a sideboard for a Sett. You would imagine it would be very strong, 1 energy, 1 recycle, to essentially stop all of Kai'Sa's stuff.
Yeah, but it does seem like the way that Tog wants to beat the Kai'Sas is mostly through Sett ability and flooding the board early with a lot of extra units. We saw it work in this first game, though narrowly. It was really the Kai'Sa brought it all the way back, and the Hidden Blade off the top. It's the second copy of Hidden Blade, just a 2 of, pulled off that Conquer, ends up making all the difference.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The 2 copies of Hidden Blade, and he top decks it for the win. If I was Qzmik, I would not be impressed by that. It's a rough hand. It's a rough hand to deal with. It's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to adapt with these sideboards now. Going into game number 2, Kai'Sa knows the kind of play style that Tug is going for. Will we see that use of the sideboard, the use of the Acathian Rains, maybe even a Singularity thrown in there to deal with that heftier Sett? We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think if I'm sideboarding in this spot for Tog, I have to go no changes. I don't think he has anything in the board for Kai'Sa. At least from what I was seeing there, it didn't seem like anything that I necessarily want. And then on the other side for Qzmik, I think it's Acathian Raids in for potentially Draven. I think the Draven is maybe a little too slow. I see the idea with being able to accelerate it with the Sun Disk, but I think there needed to be a little bit more spells, a little bit more removal coming through for the side of Qzmik. And maybe it's not the Draven, maybe there's something else that can pop out, but I do think those 2 in against the others.
So, going into game number 2, we have the battlefields of Windswept Hillock and the Arena's Greatest. So, this game is going to be 1 point faster than usual due to that Arena's Greatest. And we see immediately Tug throwing out the Pit Pookie for his first turn, followed up by the Watchful Sentry for Qzmik.
Yep, that makes sense. We've got the extra point. We had the Hillock in the last game. That's going to be ganking from the Hillock. And it's just very quick plays coming from both players. The Ray on going second, having a unit to play, and then Ray to deny the point for Tog. Very, very good start for Kai'Sa, but Qiyana is just kind of... It's not a nightmare for Kai'Sa to deal with, but it's really annoying to have to deal with Qiyana. And Tog is going to be able to have that out and be able to look for those early conquers to try and get some more cards. Definitely, I think this deck starves for cards a lot, and Qiyana is a way that you can actually get a lot of that card draw. We are going to get the Sabotage immediately. That will be able to take care of this Falling Star.
Yep, the Falling Star definitely caused some issues in the last game. The Cleave, not so much, only forces 1 battlefield push, but the Fallen Star can definitely do more than that.
Interestingly, the Cleave is a little bit more annoying for Tog if he caps with the Qiyana, because Cleave can just be put on to this this Sentry and trade into Kiana and not having to actually recycle any runes to the deflect effect if Tog was planning to tap out. And I think that's where the thought comes in now, where it's like, wow, usually Falling Star is just something I have to get rid of, but this cleave perfectly answers my Kiana right now, and it's not something I really want to allow, and it is going to be the cleave that gets taken.
Yeah, recycled to the bottom of the main deck, so we won't be seeing that cleave probably for the rest of the game. But we see the Pit Pookie coming out and buffing the Kiana, holding a hefty 5 might now, pushing onto the hillock and gaining a point. Kiana's, we know that the cleave's gone, we know that they have Falling Star, but Sett ability is up. Kiana has that the buff. So it's going to be very difficult to remove. Ooh. And we are seeing a challenge come out on the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, that is very tough for Kai'Sa. Going to be able to remove the Kiana with the Falling Star if you want, but the problem is you're going to have to recycle 2 additional runes for that, losing out a lot. One of the big advantages you have in this matchup is a massive amount of rune advantage over Sett, because he's going to recycle so frequently with Sett ability. As we can see that now, right? 3 runes for Sett, and Kai'Sa was having 7, but the Falling Star is going to reduce that quite a bit. Is only going to send 1 target into the Kiana. I'm curious how the rest of that removal will come through. Tapping for Sprite Mother, that was there. Going to be able to just accelerate this into the Kiana to trade her away. So not having to recycle quite as much.
Yep, Kiana is saved by the boss legend card. Kiana goes back to 4. However, Tog is now down to 4 runes next turn, so limits the amount of stuff he can do. But he can at least push back, gain the battlefield advantage again, claiming the Watchful Sentry, but that does force Qzmik to draw 1, which might struggle later on the line. We saw what happened last game when Qzmik had all of the cards. Unfortunately, he had bad draws, but if you're in a situation this game where he has the good draws, he has the spells, it's not going to go well for you.
I want to go ahead and take a look here at the hand, see what Tog has got. He has the Showstopper and a Sabotage, as well as the Cytheria. The Monk is a little tough when you don't have a lot of extra cards to go with it. A lot of extra units, because it must see 2 units to be played. It cannot just be played when you only have 1 unit on board. So the Cytheria would have to join this Kiana. I think the consideration comes down to, do you need to Showstopper to get this buff on to Kiana? And from there, with this Kiana Conquer, you now have the decision point of, do you want to draw or do you want to channel a Rune Exhausted? I think with the cards in hand, I may still be looking to draw as many cards as possible.
See, I was a Kiana enjoyer at the very, very start, and I think it's really underrated, the rune draw, especially in a deck where Tog, who seems to be running, well, he isn't running any seals, and he's just going through his runes super quickly. You already got good cards in hand. In a moment like this, it could have been a call to go for a rune, but we see that he went for the draw, pushing onto the Windswept Hillock, forcing the Kai'Sa to draw as well.
This is great because Showstopper doesn't unready the Kiana. So there we go. We are going to channel the Rune Exhausted and then conquer again with Kiana because the Kai'Sa is tapped out. Get another Kiana trigger, this time draw. Cytheria gets to come down in response afterwards. And this is just such a big turn. Being able to use that Showstopper with the Kiana, get the multiple triggers of that Conquer on a single turn. It is massive for the Sett player.
She gets the best of both worlds and gains 2 points for it. So halfway on the point counter to victory for Tog. Ooh, we see a cleave onto the Sprite Mother, pushing on. So 6-5.
Unless a Call to the Great or Call to the Glory was drawn, but no, just gonna be Sett ability, which is just fine. We know that Kinku Monk is in the hand of Tog to be able to buff both of these units. And because none of them have been removed yet, I mean, we'll see if Kai'Sa's got any removal, but we knew it was the Thousand-Tailed Watcher. And Tog is going to see that now. Thousand-Tailed Watcher, another Falling Star, and that Void Seeker. I think Void Seeker is always the take. It deals with Qiyana and also cantrips. That's the important thing. The Kai'Sa deck really wants to be drawing whenever it's casting one of these spells. And right now, this is one of the most card-starved Kaisas I've seen in quite some time. Only on 2 cards. That trade's just going to happen immediately because there's no response because that Void Seeker is gone.
So we see the Qiyana effects go for the draw, pushing up with the Cithria onto the Hillock for the extra points and a Daring Poro and Pit Pookie coming onto the board, buffing the Qiyana. So with the boss card ready, we know that the Qiyana is safe for another turn. And Kai'Sa needs to remove both of these units, or should I say one of them, to not just immediately lose at the start of next turn.
Absolutely, and I mean, we do have the Thousand-Tailed Watcher. Just going to come in, and that's going to be able to easily deal with one of these. Surprisingly, not going for the Qiyana. Not even Call the Glory would save Qiyana there. So I am a little bit surprised by that decision. I guess it's because it's Hillock. And you... Actually, yeah, it is because of Hillock and being able to go from that side. But that is just going to be the Hidden Blade taking down the Thousand-Tailed Watcher. And that's going to be Tog taking this 2-0 Sett versus Kai'Sa. I think that's one of the reasons we didn't see any sideboard necessary for Tog, is Qiyana one of the best answers into this Kai'Sa deck. Having the deflect, but also being at 4, that is then buffed to 5 with the buffs. 5 being a very difficult number for Kai'Sa to deal with outside of exactly Falling Star, but we know that if you can just set the unit back and you make your opponent recycle 3 runes, it is a very, very powerful spot to be in.
Yeah, we saw the Hidden Blade for both game number 1 and number 2 being the power card that Tog needed to break through the Kai'Sa. It literally saved him in game number 1. It got him the top deck win. In this one, it just pushed off what was probably going to be a win anyway, but Hidden Blade doing wonders against the Kai'Sa.
Absolutely. Looks great. And I mean, with that, we will have more games coming up in just a sec, but we are going to go to a quick break. Riftlab Trials 1 will continue when we return.